Hello, this is the Hidden Layers podcast, and I'm your host, Michał Przątka. Today, we are talking about venture capital and investing. As many software engineers already realize, AI tools are getting so powerful that a single developer can now ship in weeks or days rather than months. But if building software is becoming so cheap and so fast, what are VCs actually betting on? Where is the edge when the technology itself is no longer the advantage? This is the question. This is the main question I wanted to explore today. For this conversation, I invited Maciej Małysz. Matt is a partner at Inovo, one of the biggest seed stage funds in our region, with over 100 million euro under management. He is a seasoned investor, somebody who definitely knows his craft. We discussed what changed and what didn't, and how to build unicorns today. So, let's dive in. By the way, did you notice that the email was actually sent from my OpenClaw assistant?
Yeah. How does it work for you? For me, to get the value out of OpenClaw, you need to give it all the context you can, and the magic happens. And magic happens when it has access to your live file systems and live email and calendar. But to me, the security risk and the fact that it can, go on its own and delete my email or do this, this is not something that I can accept. We have 2 portfolio companies that work in those personal assistants slash workflows. And to all of them, when I had a task for them, I started providing look, this is the skill I want you to follow. And it's just basically a markdown file, which follows how you would do it for OpenClaw.
From my perspective as a user, after a few days with this modality, when I now am faced with, for example, issuing a bank transfer through an online form, I just feel like interacting with previous era interface. I don't want to engage myself. So again, I think this is an interesting modality, probably with quite a few challenges still ahead.
If I may add to that, I think I had it most with voice models. Like the moment the interface switched to voice and you started to be able to speak and discuss with a model where you're on the run, or not with typing, just speaking and listening and having those, being able to get insights and, test. This was for me today, this is my preferred way to use it. We are seeing certain emergence of new modalities, not new interfaces that will change or are changing how we work, right? Because to give you another example, we have a portfolio company that launched a Slack bot, which is called Victor. But the moment you start being able to send a voice note to a software that lives within your Slack to do some stuff, and they understand the context, they are connected with your internal systems, they can communicate with your teammates. It is able to contextualize it all and make real work done. I think this might be this will be transformational for many different verticals, use cases, workflow.
But when you're saying that you're thinking about these modalities, you're referring specific to voice as a bet that you're making as an investor, or this is some you're talking about something more general?
I'm talking about it as, first of all, as a user. I'm trying in those things. You can you look for inspirations. What do you think can be big? Where do you think a change has happened? So I think introduction of voice interface as a first-class citizen is something new, but historically was not so good. Just plain and simple. It wasn't you could transcribe stuff, but it's different. Look, I have friends working in companies that make good profits. They still do pen and paper for tasks that could be solved and automated with a simple Excel spreadsheet. Whatever, 20 years ago, but they're still there. They're still using this, while the early adopters are quick to jump on it. And I think, software engineers and developers historically were, always looking for what's new. If you have working business, it's not like you're on the lookout for, hey, does AI have a new model that has changed the way I can do my work? And there is still a lot of opportunities that stem from that.
I also wanted to say, because you were mentioning how the development process changed and what we can draw from that, what last 6 months showed is that now anybody can build reliably. What do you make of it as an investor? Like, is it now easier to find founders? Like, are there more opportunities from your perspective, or maybe it's harder because there is more hype, more noise?
What are the facts? I think that AI in software development acts today as a huge force multiplier, meaning good people or exceptional people can 10x their work. And I've seen this it's not like, oh, I've seen it with our team, some of our founders, like it is already happening. I would put it the date, even not like last 6 months, but maybe last 3 months since December, where it's like a step change in what the models can do and how the quality of the output in regular software engineering tasks has changed. It's still not 100%, but in many cases you can one-shot a solution if it's like not very difficult. If it's like separated from wider system, if it can correct itself through tests, like it's much easier because it's self-correcting the process. There are still areas where it's not so easy, but it's, the gap is getting smaller and smaller. And I think, so this is number one, but it also means that if you are a weak developer or you do not understand how those things work, it's like, it doesn't give you much. You generate a lot of, stuff that should not exist in the first place. And I would say from this perspective, you still look for people who are exceptional and have exceptional understanding. And the thing is, like, maybe need less money, or with the same amount of money, they can just do much more in terms of product and engineering. I'm a big believer, like, look, for those agents to build stuff that makes sense in production, not only make a cool demo, there is some complexity involved. Like, you need to understand the architecture that you want to go through, and all those things purely on the technological side. And I'm even more bullish because it's like, if I talk with some of my founders, they're like, I'm not a great people's manager, right? Like, this is a friction point. Like, I can build a lot of stuff, but the companies grow and you hire more and more people. And now you can, especially in early days, you just deliver so much more with smaller, leaner team. So from an investor perspective, especially one like myself who do very early stages, like I do pre-seed and seed investments, so like the earliest stages of the company you can think of, it's just a great force multiplier. And there are problems with that. Obviously, we can touch upon that, but I mean, this is how I perceive it today.
Yeah, I actually also see this similar conversation just among engineers. Yeah, like how do you build reliable software? What I was referring to is, again, like how this looks from a founder's perspective, from VC perspective, because we've had a mantra of like technical founders, at least a technical founder for a not technical founder. Like, is it easier to be a non-technical founder today versus 10 years ago, or maybe it's harder?
I'm spending most of my time in software infrastructure, in dev tools, in how to use machine learning to solve enterprise level problems. Like, there's still so much complexity on the engineering side that we can't do it.
Yeah.
If you want to build a business that's like maybe B2C, maybe, a simpler on the architectural side, you can do that today. Like, you can be a non-technical founder, you can build it. You can maybe even get some VC money for that. It is not where I would put my money.
Okay.
It's not where I look for edge, to be honest. And I would put it differently. I think today the pressure on non-technical founder, especially if they're building with a strong technical founder, is crazy. Because when you think about, you can make a suggestion. Look, the technical founder just got 10x stronger over the last year. Did you? In your non-tech, like, and there are obviously tools in commercial side, like marketing and all those things, but it's like, I think that through its nature and through its focus, software engineering got the biggest benefits out of all the LLMs in the early waves. And as a non-technical founder, or as a technical founder who is responsible for commercial functions,
you're lagging behind, basically.
You're lagging behind. And this is a discussion I had with a couple of friendly founders who are like, look, I feel I got superpowers, and I feel like, all the people around me, especially on the non-technical side, they're sort of lagging behind.
This is super interesting because I like, to me, one of the angles was like, yeah, non-technical founders are the founders you need, because everything else is just like, technical nuance. Now you can like vibe code it, but you turn it around that there is actually now even more pressure to catch up. Let's actually talk about how to build this business then. How you think about your investments and how you would advise companies to look for an edge. Maybe you could also cover like Inovo a little bit and your portfolio from your own perspective, just to have full picture.
Sure. So Inovo is an early stage fund where for the last 12 years we've been
one of the biggest in the area.
We are one of the biggest in the area, and we are investing in, like, our core thesis is that people that are coming from this part of the world, meaning Central Eastern Europe, have unique ability and understanding of technology, and they have a good chance of building companies that will have a global footprint. And we invest at the early stages, like pre-seed and seed. We invest between €0.5 to €4 million in founders and projects where we believe they have a chance. We have around €100 million fund, and we invest at pre-seed. It's maybe on the smaller side of things. At seed, it's like up to €4 million. Like my last investment was $4 million at early seed, I would say. So, but it all depends on what you are building, how capital intensive it is, where you are, how much capital do you need to get to the next milestone. These are sort of arcana of VC funding, which I don't know whether you want to go into.
Do you have any particular focus on AI field right now?
So historically, pre-LLMs, I was covering something that back then was called machine learning for enterprise customers. Now, we just recently did an analysis over all the deals that we did since 2024. All of them somehow relate to AI. And sometimes they relate in like, hey, this is a product, we just implement features that are AI-based, that make whatever experience more seamless, whatever. Some of them are really deep core infra AI kind of bets. But all of them, with no exception, have as part of how they build value and give this value to the customer, have AI as core part of it. So it's difficult to say today. Like in the old days, I would do like stuff like machine vision, right? Like today, it's part of the wider thing that people call AI. And I would say, like, if you are not building in AI, you're gonna have a super tough time to fundraise, like because it's very difficult to.
Not from you, just generally.
Just generally on the market.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons which I think people do not understand, AI has been such an, again, force multiplier, not only on how you build code, but also how you build companies. So we have one of our portfolio company grew to $12 million in annual revenue in 12 months from launch profitably.
Which one?
It is. It's called Sintra. They provide AI agents for the smallest businesses, like moms and pops shops. Like, how do you bring this technology and provide them to small businesses that might not understand the nuances? But to give you a scale, like 0 to 12 million profitably in 12 months, like if you told me this 4 years ago, I would say, like, that's impossible. Like, that's bullshit, man. Like, this is this. And today, the best in class solutions have even faster growth. So, in dev tools, like there is like, it's not our investment, so I will not disclose the name, but like there is a company that pivoted into part of AI stack and grew to 3 million ARR in 6 months, right? Like, so, and those are the numbers that historically you would expect to have at maybe, Series A, good Series A company would have 3 million ARR, in terms of market valuation. Today, it's like you get straight off the gate, and you, like, this is the game you're playing. And if you're not in this cohort, you don't give chance to be one of those companies, you will not find VC funding, because VCs intrinsically generally look for something that either has momentum or can becomes something that has momentum.
And where do you see the market today? Because you probably heard the term SaaSmageddon. Everything is dying. Everything is going to, be vibe coded now. You've mentioned it yourself. The sheer speed of progress probably also makes it super hard to find your niche and compete. Do you see like a lot of opportunity or a risk? I mean, I'm sure it's the former given your background, but just let's explore that a little bit.
Like I had countless discussions over the last month with friends, not only about SaaSmageddon, but generally where the world goes.
Can you explain the word itself and where it comes from?
SaaSmageddon, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's basically decimation of the multiples of publicly traded SaaS companies that historically were like
such
strong
as?
performance. You had Monday
or something like that.
Salesforce, but even Monday, like there was this case where someone on I think CNBC said that, hey, I can vibe code Monday.com, and the share dropped like 15%. Like I think it's a lot of that is. I mean, I didn't analyze precisely where Monday is. I'm not a user. I'm not an investor. I think that it boils down to this general fact that people are afraid what future brings, and they're like, okay, like what is even stable? Like we start to question a lot of a priori assumptions. I think that I still am of the opinion that to build something that work on production in large enterprise, it's very difficult to do. And when you are a company like that, like if you are a big enterprise, 99% of cases you will not want to build some support software to because there is an effort that's needed to maintain it. There is an effort needed to develop it. Like there are all those things where I'm of a very strong opinion that you should focus on when your edge is and your core business is. But what AI does is like I really do think it's gonna create a pricing pressure because the buy versus build, discussion is gonna be different and is different today. So if you're going to your customer and you are maybe not providing as much value as you would like to, like they will push back because one, there will be competition, looking at what you're doing. Second of all, you'll say like, look, I'm paying you through the nose, but I'm only using like 5% of functionalities. It makes no sense. Like you either get a better price or we just build it ourselves. And I think, and I think the discussion then goes, if you take it further, saying, hey, less people means less seats, so the contract will also get lower. But I think not everything is going to be vibe coded, but I think reinventing yourself in this era is very important. And I don't think that SaaSmageddon means that those companies will not exist
disappear,
or lost the meaning. It's just they need to reinvent themselves, because if they don't, they will go to the ground.
Okay, so forget about the big players. You're dealing with founders, seed stage, pre-seed stage, and I mean, I'm imagining that the kind of how to defend ourselves, how to find a business which is hard to compete with, is probably a conversation you're trying to have from day one. Where would you take these conversations? Where would you suggest to build these defenses?
I think it very much depends on what you're building, and but honestly, the discussion doesn't start with this point. It starts why you're building what you build, because historically building software was costly, was expensive, and it required you. It eliminated a lot of ideas because it was just too costly. I think it wasn't bad, because it's like a lot of bad ideas did not emerge out of it. There were some good ones that were killed because they were too costly. But to me, the most important question always is why you're building what you're building. Like why should it exist? Why haven't it existed before? What is the reason for this piece of technology to exist? And it often comes from inside of the founder and the pull from the market in a certain direction or certain vision of the future where we are not there yet. Like an example would be, look, what about all the services should be agent to agent? They're not there are all those things that sort of are like, we haven't lived through that yet. But if you draw the lines, you can make an assumption. Okay, this is where the world is going. I want to build for that. So the why is super important. And only once you have the why that is strong enough, where you think, okay, this is really worthwhile. Like, how do you make it from this idea into a business that makes sense? And number one risk today, I think, for most people that build on top of AI is, how are you protecting yourself from the risks of the platform you're building on? Like, how do you, like, co-work, like Cloud co-work, like 10 days to launch a product that is, not API, not like it's a product in itself. I think there was some discussion about ChatGPT and Claude going after Harvey, so like legal thing. And I think a big question that you need to answer is like, okay, how do I build a business and a product that can protect itself from the risk of the model providers going,
after the same, the food chain,
yeah. How do you? And there, like, it is a complicated discussion, but I would also point out that it is only a fraction of projects that we talk that even face this risk. Because we invest in stuff where we've invested in a company called Ingenix. I don't know whether you're aware. It's like Piotr and Adam, they built previously an ML company called Applica AI. They sold it to Snowflake. They made state-of-the-art intelligent document processing. And now they're tackling the process of, how do you make sure that AI understands the biology across its scales? Current technologies are just not good enough yet. So there's an opportunity in building something that's, thematically in a similar direction. Like, AI is changing the world, changing the workflows, but it's not really building on top of model providers. Like, I doubt this is the first priority of people at, Anthropic to build a biology-focused model. And there is a whole group of companies that build world model, like physical models, like all those things that the current LLMs are not good enough because of the characteristic that they all share, where all of them stem from Transformer.
So what I'm hearing is that one of the things, or one of the ways to defend your business would be to just find a complex domain and try to tackle that. What about, I think you mentioned this earlier, distribution or just integration across some verticals, such as legal or healthcare?
It stems from in-depth understanding of intricacies and workflows in a given vertical, being legal, I don't know, veterinary support, or whatever domain more than an average person, and you build workflows that are end-to-end deeply integrated in the current ecosystem. In a way where, as I mentioned with Victor, like, if Victor is aware of all my company data and know how I like to make stuff done, and so it's much more than just prompting and getting an answer. It's very part of my team now, and reflecting that into your product, being deeply embedded, being aware of the maybe custom integrations sometimes, and taking the work from one end to the other is where I think the magic will happen over the next years. So it's not part of the process; it's the full process, the full task, the full job to be done that I have to do. If you can take it from my plate and deliver something that is of exceptional value, I think model providers would need to build a similar solution. They're not capable of doing that, right? Like they will not.
This distribution or integration is very important. Actually, this also makes me wonder, how come Microsoft and OpenAI didn't build OpenClaw earlier? Because, given how integrated they are in the corporate world, and they clearly have access to all the Office documents and stuff, and yet it was developed through open source effort.
Like, this was the only way to launch something like OpenClaw because of the risk. Because if you are a big corporation launching something like OpenClaw, where it can delete your user's entire file system if they're not careful, it's very prone to all those cybersecurity tricks with prompt injections. Like, there is a lot of risk, which, in open source, you can write, hey, these are the best practices in cybersecurity. Like, these are maybe not, as secure as you would like, but like, you do you, right?
Yeah.
If you're Microsoft, can you really do that? Like, I think it's not so easy. So I think this was a right place for this idea to start, giving, in my opinion, how risky it is. But at the same time, look, like all the big labs, they jumped on it while they got the validation that this is something that people want. Like they all beat for people to join their organizations. Like he ended up in OpenAI, and we'll see. But I'm sure this is what, model providers are in a difficult spot. I'm of an opinion that this is going to become a utility. It's going to get commoditized. So how, as a model provider, if you agree with this as a probable scenario, you want to build your edge in the future. And edge is application. Edge is being owner of customers. If you're an infrastructure layer, you don't own the customer, right? ChatGPT did it tremendously well. It owns the customers, people that use it. But how do you translate it into business use cases? How do you expand on it? And I think, and I'm not sitting at Sam Altman's board, like I'm far from it, but I mean, this is what I would think about when getting someone like Peter. Like I saw someone who knows what people want. And this is a way for us to embed our technology, not only at an infrastructure layer, which is going to get commoditized, but also higher up the chain, so that ideally we are sitting on our customers' desktop, laptop, mobile, whatever. We have exposure and we become a new platform. There will be a couple of model providers. There will be open source that is probably good enough for most use cases. And you are going to be priced for it by the cost of electricity and the amortization of the hardware it's running on. Utility, like super thin margin, grand scale, super thin margin. So I try to do it through other means. And other means is like, like how do I embed my technology in something that adds more value? And this is application layer, and or maybe services, or maybe some other tricks to make it, do value add so that my margins can go out. And I think this is what OpenAI is betting on Peter, that he's the person who can, for personal AI, can build this kind of products.
So it's very interesting because on one hand we keep talking about how things have changed, how it's so cheap to deliver software now, how it's so fast as well. And on the other hand, when talking about how to build a defensive business, I don't hear anything that probably you wouldn't say 5 years ago, or maybe I'm just missing the point here. Has something like really changed in terms of how you think about building this companies?
With some notable exceptions, I put much less emphasis, or I believe less, that software that you build has any moat in itself. Like historically, to build a
was
good
it the case? Any case?
I can say I don't know about other people. I think you had this you have a super, especially in pre-LLM era, if you had unfair access to good data scientists and you could do magic on your internal models, I thought, okay, it's worth something, right? Like what you're building today. I mean, not so much, honestly speaking. But, and I would say product, so engineering follow with the caveat that I said, that you still need to understand how it works to build great products and great technology. But I think there are two levers that you can play with, and one is product, and we had a lot of discussion around it just now. Like I think it's product. Like, what's the touch and feel? Like, what's the value? What's the flow of your user? What's your understanding of their needs and their wants? So this is on the product side, and there is a lot you can build, because I think the most defensive characteristics of the business there is, it's called network effects. Meaning when your software, your piece of technology gets better with each party that is joining your software, because it makes it so sticky. It's so difficult to disrupt a business that has strong network effects. And this is a function of product itself, how it's built, what's the value, how it operates. But the second thing is distribution or go to market. And you've alerted to that. And I would say what changed is, first of all, benchmark has changed. Because as I told you, going 0 to 3 million in the old times would be good Series A. Today it's you might get a Series A or a seed round rather. But also, I think this is where a lot more competition is coming on. So it's even more important to have a unique understanding of what your distribution channels and go-to-market motion looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you avoid getting into a trap of, oh, I know how to spend money on Google ads or Meta ads, and then 10 other people start spending the same way, your client acquisition goes through the roof, and then what is your business? Like, how do you strategically think about acquiring businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this is like the generational company, especially the ones that operate in this execution type, meaning not building new pieces of infrastructure, but where it's more product based. The go-to market is critical and much more challenging, I would say, than it was 5 years ago, because there's so much, like you need to grow so much faster because this is the requirement. You can grow so much faster as well, which wasn't the case before. And being thoughtful about how you approach it and having this operational excellence in go-to-market becomes one of the two levers that I look at.
And would you say that maybe now it's feasible to build businesses around ideas that were just not financially feasible 5 years ago, or I don't know, like edge computing of some particular very niche business, or whatever. Again, just coming back to this idea of like cheaper software, maybe that just opens markets that were closed before.
And that's for sure. And I would make an argument that in many cases, these are not probably VC outcomes that I would look for. Look, I think bull case for AI revolution is, I think that if you free up the talent because of the productivity gains, people will start building more and more, and we're gonna start having, awesome new products and awesome new businesses that are gonna be, part of our lives.
It's an interesting perspective to hear it from the VC, that this is not something very interesting, but there is still a lot of value to be created for a society.
But if I can, to add on that, because I think this is an important aspect. Like historically, I've been always saying, like, look, VCs touch on what, a promile, less than a promile of businesses that are being created. Like, it's very specific road to build a company.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better or worse, it's just very particular. Like, we are on the lookout for companies that can reach, 11 lab scale, like 300 million in a couple of years in revenue, run through technology. This is what people get excited about. This is what they look for. And it doesn't mean that if you can, like, if a business is not for a VC because it doesn't have this potential, it doesn't mean it's a bad business. It can be healthier business. It can be better suited for the needs of the customers. So I would say it's important to understand that this perspective of running after this huge outcomes were baked into how VC model usually works. I think it's important to understand that as a VC fund, let's assume I build a portfolio of 20 companies that I invest in. The results of my fund will be a result of how good top 1-2 companies will be. Our first fund was driven predominantly by our investment in Booksy. The sole investment in Booksy returned couple times of our fund. Only this. So I could have not invested in any of the other companies. They could have returned 0. It wouldn't make material difference on the returns. So this used the thinking and the plans and the selection to projects that have this potential.
Yeah, the ceiling needs to be like totally invisible if you're
the ceiling is like a helpful, like, to me, a helpful framework for that is like, it needs to be obviously big enough. Like, if you start counting and thinking like, is it big enough? The answer is it's not. Like, I mean, you take the risk because it's, high risk, high reward, right?
There are some unlocks that are just not as interesting as an opportunity from your perspective as an investor. Okay, let's place the bets. You mentioned the voice modality is an interesting space. I mean, you can come back to that, or generally, like, what are your intuitions? Where will we see growth in the next 12 months?
I think we will see a lot of deeply embedded workflow-focused solutions. So in vertical niches, you will have the things that you tell them what you want to be done, and it will be done. So this is one, and maybe it's not super innovative, but I think it's going to change how we work. Basically what happened for software engineering, but in other domains. So like people call it like knowledge workers. I don't think knowledge workers know they are knowledge workers.
But like producing knowledge or producing outputs as a like corporate person.
Yeah, even for like you need to make a presentation. You
Yes,
build a
exactly.
model. You need to make analysis. Like this is, you had to use knowledge. I think that it's like, in a way, LLMs is like, if you take it far enough, you can say, hey, ultimately those models will commoditize intelligence. Historically, to do a piece of work that required intelligence, you had to hire a human and pay them for that. And today, you are able to do some of those pieces of work with the use of model as a replacement, and it just costs fraction of cost. So from this perspective, it's democratizing and making intelligence a utility in a way. You can just pay for it pay $1 to have like some kind of semi-intelligent work being done on what you need to.
Yeah. You expect something that happened to software engineering to kind of affect just knowledge work in general, be it through Cloud Cowork or some other tool that we don't know yet.
In most cases, it's going to come from new companies that are building, have very deep understanding of a given domain and the workflows that are needed there. And I think it's already happening. Like if you pay attention, there are already companies that are booming, like growing like crazy in different, very, I would say, called niche domain, but they go so deep into this domain that they can just deliver work.
So we can have like, as a corporate employee, you can actually be surrounded by, 15 of these super powerful co-pilots.
Yeah. And I don't think for corporates it's going to happen this year, but I think it is going to start happening. And I think the adoption curve is coming more bottoms up, where corporates are more complex, more difficult, like the adoption is still lagging there. But it will happen, and it will bring, what I think it's beyond discussion at this point is like that those models, for people who know what they do, they bring tremendous power to software engineering, and I think the same will be true for other domains.
Yeah. My just to place my bet, and this is going to be the last part of our conversation. I think the fastest growing category for the next 12 months is actually personal AI assistants, such as OpenClaw. Just coming back to how we started, I think this is going to open new opportunities for companies as well, like to build, why don't Allegro allows my bot to purchase stuff directly? Why do I have to make the transfer on my bank myself? I mean, of course, there are a lot of challenges, but I mean, we have 12 months to solve that. And I think this is going to be a very interesting, very interesting year in that space.
So I have a side bet to your bet, because my bet is you will see emergence of agent-to-agent focused solutions.
Yeah.
So think emails, but inbox that is built around the idea that agent is agent-proof, and where entity that is consuming emails and generating emails is not human. So the interface, like protocols, everything needs to be rewritten completely to be more efficient. And you will see a lot of those services where we think, historically humans were using that. So like the interfaces were adapted to how human perceive. They will be rebuilt, and you'll see more and more companies, launching either protocols of their own, or new companies that will emerge that will try to say, okay, there's a new world where a lot of the actions that are being done and the content that is being consumed and everything, all the interactions are not designed with human in mind, but with agent in mind.
And actually, a lot of friction you see still in software development is that we are using tools and workflows that are not compatible with this unlocked capacity, and basically like they assumed human in the loop, such as GitHub pull request reviews or and many other things. Like we have to squeeze agents through stuff that are used to humans. Okay, thanks a lot for the conversation. It's been great. Very happy that we sat down together. I'm going to now go to my personal agent to ask him to remind us about our bets in 12 months.
Looking forward to hearing from you and your agent.
Yes. Maciek, it was a pleasure. Good luck with all your investments.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.